Hello, I'm Steve Marsh, and I'm finally getting able to do this video, and I've had the first day without too much wind. At the moment, I'm backpacking through the Sonoma Desert, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background about my involvement with D&D. It kind of started in 1969 when I was trying to figure out a way to merge a board game with a fantasy story, so you could adventure and play the game. I was never able to do that, but in 1974 I sat down next to Sandy Peterson, and he happened to have the brand new rules to Dungeons and Dragons. So I asked him if I could borrow them. I didn't know Sandy at the time, that's how I met him. And he was kind enough to share them with me. And I began to correspond with Gary Gygax. And we started talking about adding good and evil to Law and Chaos. And that eventually culminated with an article in the Strategic Review where I was contributing editor status. And they added good and evil to the Law Chaos axis. I then did some more monsters, and eventually my underwater encounters ended up in Blackmoor. My campaign that I've been working on before Dungeons and Dragons, the setting was a multiplanar post-apocalyptic setting, which at the time was something kind of new. Now it's kind of old hat. And then I worked up a character class using the various characteristics of Indian holy men. And that was used for the psionic powers that we add to D&D as powers rather than as a character class. I was asked to come work at TSR by Gary for a summer. And so between my first and second year of law school, I came out and worked at TSR. And that's when they had me write the expert set. I came up with the current version of Elves in BX and did a lot of writing. At the time, it really seemed to me and everyone else the hardest part was the editing, which Tom Moldvay and Zeb Cook did, because they had to do it without computers. And they had to make the pages match up between the two editions, so you could swap pages in and out. I also did an interplanar setting called Star Strands, which Gary intended to use to connect all the various TSR worlds. And that, unfortunately, was in his office when he got locked out. And I always thought he was being exaggerated when he said it was all burned, but it actually was all burned, apparently. But I've got that recreated, and Star Strands will be showing up at GenCon. One of the things I enjoyed doing was putting together things in an organized fashion with the planes of reality. The underlying structure for positive and negative energy being Platonic ideals with some Aristotelian nominalism mixed in. And that shows up in Gary's method where you have the heavens and the hells and such, and the various planes of reality. And Gary planned to do a book for that, and we were working on it when he was thrown out and they decided not to have me write it after all. But that's the long and the short of much of my involvement, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone.